Today is Thursday, May 4th, and screw it, you guys know the name of the show. On this week's episode of Plastic Weekly, I sit down with Canon Huse, who's a kindred spirit of mine working to create recreational competitions for kids down in Texas. Stick around for it. Up here in Ontario, youth competitions are serious business. We run bouldering local comps in a 5-on, 5-off format. Our rope comps are also World Cup format. Each comp sees upward of 200 competitors, and all of these so-called small local events take 2 days to complete, not to mention generally 3 or more days of setting. These competitions can be intimidating for new young climbers. These comps are meant to rank the best athletes and help them qualify for provincials, then qualify for nationals, then qualify for the world championships. They're designed around the strongest athletes we have, and I think that's how it should be. But that makes it hard for new climbers to learn how comps work and very hard to develop any confidence in a competitive environment. The gym I work at has always had a really big youth program, and the recreational coaches have always had a hard time telling kids how to take the first steps into competitive climbing. Youth locals are always intimidating, tour de blocks aren't often perfect for small bodies, and our local summer series, the Summer Sweat Fest, only runs in the summertime. So I got together with the rest of my crew and built Pebble Pull, a bouldering competition for pre-competitive youth ages 0 to 13. It was a lot of fun. We ran it again, and now that model is being pushed across the province. I'll post a video from the event so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But last week, an Instagram post caught my eye, so I dug around and found a guy in Dallas, Texas named Canon Huse. With the help of Kyle Clinkscales and his Summit Gyms plus Team Texas, he's been building a similar idea down in the American South, and he focused on ropes and speed rather than bouldering. I got him on the phone between his setting and coaching shifts to pick his brain and compare notes. Hey, Canon, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. This is Tyler, right?
Yeah, it is. Thanks for taking the time to sit down with me. You just did you just finish setting today, or what's your day been like?
It's been good. Today is actually our maintenance day. We take Wednesdays off and just sort of do any maintenance around the gym that needs to happen because we actually set the 4 different gyms here in Dallas. So there's generally something that needs to be done.
Yeah, before we start talking about why I have you here, so you work at Summit climbing gyms, which I just kind of looked up, and there's currently 4 locations in this business, and they're all in Dallas. You guys kind of like own the Dallas area for climbing gyms. Have you been climbing at those gyms like your entire life, or what's your background there?
Well, pretty much. So there's actually one other climbing gym in Dallas that Summit does not own called Canyons, and really that's where I grew up was climbing there. I was on the youth team there from when I was 8 to pretty much when I aged out of USA Climbing. So I've always been involved in the area, and then whenever I aged out of climbing, I wanted to start coaching, and I reached out to Kyle Clinkscales, who's the head coach of Team Texas, and he sort of gave me a job with them, and then I just started getting more and more involved with the Summit, which Kyle also is the owner of Summit. So, and I was always interested in route setting as well, so it just sort of escalated from there, but basically just enjoying the rock climbing life here in Dallas.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you were in the youth circuit then so you started when you were 8 and you went all the way till you aged out. So that's like 11 or 12 years of being a youth competitor.
Yep. Yeah. With the full gambit.
That's an interesting background for this. So the whole reason I wanted to call you is because like about a year ago, I guess, myself and a bunch of the guys I worked with, we put together this comp for young kids called Pebble Pull here in Ontario. And then just a few weeks ago, I stumbled across on my Instagram feed this post for something called the JCCA, and I looked it up a little bit and I found your name. And so the whole reason I have you here is because I really want to talk about what you guys did down in Texas. So can you tell me, like, first of all, what is the JCCA?
The JCCA is the Junior Competitive Climbing Association, and it's sort of a play on USA Climbing. My boss, Kyle, he came up with this name, because USA Climbing way back in the day used to be called the JCCA before they.
Yeah, I was gonna call that out because I remember it being like a much longer, different acronym than it is now. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're sort of just playing off that, but basically we wanted to start it for kids that were not ready to compete at the elite level that USA Climbing offers, and they needed a place where they could sort of belong and like climb with their friends and sort of show off what they've been doing and working on at their little rec team practices.
So this is the first season of the JCCA. What is like up here in Ontario? We're probably a little bit different, but same kind of thing as you guys. There are a lot of kids in competitive climbing, but if you're a young kid that's new to it, it's pretty intimidating getting into those locals, right? So what kind of if you guys host a regular USA Climbing local in Dallas or anywhere else in the big cities in Texas, how many kids come out to these locals currently in the USA system?
The ones that we host here in Dallas are pretty big because we have Team Texas, obviously in the Dallas area, which has quite a few kids on it. I think we have about 80 kids on the team. And then there's another team based out of Dallas as well that practices at that other gym, Canyons. But then we'll get kids from Houston or Austin. So generally at a local comp, we can get anywhere from, I would say, 60 to maybe 100 kids at a local.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot. How many?
It is.
And I say that's a lot, but at the same time, here in Ontario, like a bouldering local for us this year has been about like 200, 240 kids.
Really?
And
Wow.
the last time I was at a USA local was like years ago, but it was still like a red point scramble format kind of thing. And up here, everybody in Canada, our locals are all like World Cup 5-on, 5-off formats.
Wow,
So
that's
it
interesting.
stretches out all day. Like it's actually, our locals are now 2-day comps up here. So like the first day is DCB and the second day is A Junior Open. So like a gym has to commit to 2 full days to run just a local, like not even a provincial level comp. So it was getting just ridiculous up here. So you guys started up this JCCA thing. Was there any inspiration for it, or was it just like, hey, there's this need? We have all these kids that need to start somewhere, and the current system is just too intimidating for them. Was there some other anything from the past, or any ideas that you or a bunch of people were throwing out? What was going on?
So I sort of spurred the idea in Kyle because when I originally started working for Summit, I was the coach for what we call Team Summit, which is our rec team, basically, and then our kids club program, which is like our really young kids. I started coaching them, and it was not very well organized. They had events every now and again, but I just noticed that there was a lot of the kids that they would sort of do it for a while, and then they would there's no end goal or motivation to keep going or keep getting better. So a lot of kids would just stop rock climbing, and I wanted there to be something for them to work towards and to sort of get excited about. So I had approached Kyle about maybe doing some comps for them, and he liked the idea, and we've done a few that weren't with the JCCA. It was just with the Summit, just with our teams, and we got a pretty good turnout. And we decided, this seems like something that could be really cool, and we wanted to sort of take the idea and see where it went. So that's sort of how we got the inspiration to start it.
Okay, so how many events did you run this season, and what formats? Or not what formats, but it looked like some of them were bouldering, and then some of them were difficulty and speed.
So the JCCA events we've had 3 now, and we're sort of considering this first season our rope season, and then in next fall we're planning on doing a bouldering season. But so the rope season, they're all red point. The ones we've done so far are all red point comps, but they're a little bit different in sense that we're sort of scoring them like you would consider an on-site comp. So every hold on each route counts towards the points and has to be so every attempt there's a judge and they log the attempt and then what hold they reach on the climb, and then we use that to calculate their scores later. So it's a little bit of a mix of the two formats, and we've sort of decided on the name of Flashpoint right now for that, because it's sort of a mix of the Flash format, because you can watch every one, and then an on-site format, because you keep getting points for every hold, was the idea.
Cool. Like even USA locals, they don't do that, do they? Like it's just you have to get to the top, right? You
Correct.
can take multiple attempts, but so that's almost like closer to a World Cup style, like almost a more serious format than the USA version, I guess.
It would be a little bit more serious, yeah, because it's not like the necessarily the full free for all. We have judges. It's not like peer judged, like the normal local comps are here. So I guess it would be a little bit more serious.
I guess at the same time, it's like, it lets you get points even if you don't top a route, right? So you can still get some sort of progress from it. Because I'm sure there are a lot of kids that come out and might not be able to top everything.
Exactly.
Or anything, maybe.
And that was the main driving factor, I think, for us in choosing that system, because we wanted it to really be accessible to anyone. Like we've had kids come and to our comps just this season, and it was their first time rock climbing, and they're like, yeah, we had a friend who was on the rec team at Summit, and they said, yeah, come out, it's really fun. So they came out, and their first experience ever rock climbing was at one of our competitions, and we want them to be able to get points and to have a good time doing it, and not just get really discouraged by like, oh, I can't do anything, and like this isn't any fun or something like that.
That's crazy. That's actually really cool then. I'm going to get to kind of like how you guys said it and how you guys prepared it. We'll get to that a bit later, but I still have a few questions. Like the first one was, did you guys at any point consider talking to USA Climbing and trying to run this through that format? Or is it something you ever hope is like taken on by USA, or do you want to keep it just kind of among yourselves or things like that?
We haven't really had the discussion about approaching USA Climbing. I guess it has crossed my mind whether or not it would be something to talk to them about, just to get some help with running the events. But we have so many people involved with Summit that have been doing the USA Climbing events so long that we have a pretty good skill base here. And I think that overall we sort of want to keep it something that we're doing on our own, but we'd like to expand. Right now it's just in Dallas, but I think the goal is to get it to be Texas wide.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Like most of climbing in Texas centers around, I guess, Dallas and Houston and San Antonio and Austin. That's where, like, I'm assuming that's where pretty well everybody in Texas lives, is in that triangle.
Pretty much. Yeah. Those are the big cities.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, how much does it cost for one of the competitors to take part in one of the JCCA comps?
So it's only $25 to sign up for the comp, and with that you get a T-shirt for the comp as well, and then membership, and then we provide food for them during the day and stuff. So trying to keep it inexpensive.
Yeah, you provide food for the kids?
Yes. Yep.
What kind of stuff did you bring in for that? That sounds awesome.
We just sort of order pizza, and then if we have two sessions, so the morning session we have donuts, and then we have coffee for the parents, and then in the afternoon we'll bring in just pizza and stuff for them.
When you say two sessions, what's the division between the two? Like just like whoever wants to do the morning can do the morning, or whoever wants to do the afternoon can do that, or?
We try to do it have male and female, and we'll switch up whichever one is in the morning or the afternoon.
Is that a pretty common thing in the States to split comps up by sex? So you'll have like men climbing at one time and girls in a different like time slot?
Yeah. It's pretty common occurrence.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we just don't do that up. We usually split by age rather than by that. But I think they probably considered that up here. I'm not sure. So when you got these things going, you've done 3 events so far. What kind of attendance did you start to see at your own JCC events?
So The first one we did, we had no idea how many kids were going to show up. We were just sort of going to throw the comp and see what happened. But we actually had a pretty good turnout for our first one. We had 59 kids show up, and we put the comp on in a week. We were like,
That's amazing.
we're like, let's do this. And so we got it done, and we had 59 kids show up, and it was a good success. We were happy with it. And then the second one, we had a little bit less show up because we were trying to advertise during spring break, which we realized was a terrible idea. Afterwards. So we had a little bit less. We had 49 kids, and then our last comp that we had on this past Saturday, we had 62 kids show up. So we're starting to get a little bit more.
That's awesome. Like you're basically matching like a USA local then if you're going by the numbers you mentioned earlier. That's sweet.
Yeah. So that's our goal, is to keep it around that big or even grow, is if we can get more of the kids from like the Canyon gym involved and stuff too.
Yeah. A really big difference between like the States and Canada, or at least in Ontario where I am, is that in the States it looks like there ends up being a lot of locals in each region. So you'll get like a good chunk of events. So you don't usually have to travel too far. In Ontario, it's kind of, I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's pretty different, where we only run 2 locals for each discipline, and you just have to compete in one of them and get a certain rank before you can move on to provincials. And I think that's a lot of why like we have so many kids come out to our locals, is because there's only 2 of them, right? So you have to do really well in at least one of them to get further with that. And I guess in the States, that means that, you don't have to travel too far. So attendance would be lower because you don't have kids from all over Texas needing to get to this one event or anything.
Right. Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it's different at least. But so most of the attendance, I'm guessing, for your new comps are mostly like Dallas based. If you wanted to start getting kids from outside of that, and like in Houston or in the other direction in San Antonio, like would people in those areas ever consider coming to Dallas for a boulder comp, or is everybody so used to like just staying in their neighborhood because that's what it's always been like?
Well, for USA climbing comps, people do come up to Dallas and stuff if they want to climb at like. A lot of times the main driver for travel for kids doing USA climbing is like divisionals is at our gym in Grapevine. So they'll come we had a local at Grapevine, so they'll come and compete at regionals, I'm sorry, is at our gym in Grapevine. So they'll come and compete at our local there so they can get used to the walls and stuff like this, or to see the terrain before the bigger comps. So that is mainly why people travel. But for like the JCCA, I do not know how willing people would be to travel, just because, like, I don't know if climbing's reached that level of seriousness where people are willing to put that kind of effort into it here in Texas, at least, and especially at the rec team level. I would say it's not quite there yet.
Well, you were talking like you were coaching a pretty big recreational team between the Summit gyms, and I'm guessing in the other major cities in Texas, there's like probably a similar thing out there. In Ontario, there's a lot of rec climbing, so when we put ours on, we got a lot of kids from other places, but again, everybody was like roughly within a 2-hour radius at most. Like for the most part, everybody was within an hour. What's the drive time from Dallas to Houston or Dallas to San Antonio?
So Dallas to Houston is about 3.5 to 4 hours, depending on the traffic.
Oh,
yeah, and then Austin is a similar distance, and then San Antonio is actually a little bit farther, because it's just farther south. But yeah, so the distances are quite a bit more to get around here.
Yeah. Okay, so that's like definitely a big difference from up here, where I'm in the Toronto area, but even then we still get people from outside of that. But yeah, okay, just geography I guess changes stuff up. And Summit doesn't have gyms in those other cities, right?
No, we only have gyms in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So.
Okay. So have you been talking to other gyms about possibly getting them to host any of these events?
Not for this season. We have like old team members that work at gyms, like from Team Texas that work in gyms down in Austin, and we've been talking to them a little bit about having one maybe next season. But I think our main goal would be probably to have one at the other gym in Dallas, the Canyons gym. So that would be our goal for next season. Just to have like one, maybe two comps sort of in the Dallas area, but not at the Summit gyms.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. If you're trying to get other gyms to do it, like usually the thing that decides whether or not they're going to do a comp is like how much work it takes to put it on. So at this point, I'm really curious what the process was like for putting on these events. So you said the first one you did in a week, so that's really interesting to me. But especially in terms of setting, like how many days, how many setters, like what did it feel more involved than a USA local, or was it roughly the same, or was it a lot easier? What was the process like behind putting it all together?
Well, it's really not too bad. We have 7 full-time route setters that work for Summit, and what we did was the way our setting schedule works is we just have one day at each gym per week. So we set 4 days and then have our maintenance day. So whatever gym that we were going to host it at, we moved that day to Friday, and then we would strip what we would normally strip to set, and then set the JCCA routes where we wanted them, and to designate them as being different from the commercial routes, we would tape them, and that was pretty much it for setting. We obviously we forran them and made sure they were good for kids, because we don't want them to be reachy or anything like that.
Yeah.
And like just sort of tried to tailor the grades to what we think would be the best for them. But as far as like extra work for the gym, it wasn't too much, because once the comp is over, we just took the tape off, and those routes then became the commercial routes for the gym as well.
Yeah. Did you guys have to close it all for the event, or were like other parts of the gym open at the same time?
So at Summit, we have member hours Saturday morning from 8 to 11, and we run the comps from climbing starts at 8 in the morning, check-ins a little bit earlier, and then we run it till noon. So there's only 1 hour of overlap where the gym is actually open with the JCCA comp going on. So we're trying to have as little impact on the gym as possible without closing it down.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the compromise that we made.
It didn't I'm assuming it didn't bother too many members or anything. Like most people are pretty supportive of that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and sorry,
no, you go ahead, man.
with the members, like we do have since it's a rope comp, all our gyms have a separate bouldering area, so people were just able to go into the bouldering area as well. So the gym wasn't like closed down; they had places to climb still.
Yeah. Okay. When you guys were setting and forerunning, like obviously when you set for kids, it's different than just setting your regular commercial route setting. But when you went into this one, were there any factors that changed how you set from a regular competitive local versus this like kind of more recreational competition? Did you guys take in, I don't know if you guys had younger kids competing at this, or if it was just the fact that a lot of them obviously weren't as strong as the typical competitive climber?
Yeah, mostly just the grades were a little bit easier than we would have at a regular local competition. Like the format is we set 15 climbs for them, and it is a little challenging to represent people who have never climbed before, than people who are actually have been on the rec team for a long time, or just a younger climber in the gym that is not on a team but has quite a bit of experience. It's hard to represent all of those skill levels in 15 routes, so we do have to be really careful about the spread. And so like our first route is really easy. hopefully anyone who walks into the competition will be able to get at least one route, and then from there it continues to get harder. And on the upper end, we have some of the older boys are starting to do like mid 512s, so we have to accommodate all those grade ranges.
Okay, and that's something that's actually a big difference between what we did, where we like focused on the younger kids. We capped it at basically we had kids all the way up to C category, so like 12, 13. But you guys, you had it like an open age range, so you had, I'm guessing, some pretty young kids, but also all the way up to like I guess 18, 19-year-old kids showing up as well.
Yeah, 18 is the cap for our crew, and
Okay.
we haven't seen too much turnout from any. We have the categories are 10 and under, 11 to 14, and then 15 to 18. And for that upper category, we haven't had a whole lot of turnout. We've had 3 guys that have been consistent for each comp, and then we had one older girl show up once. That was a sibling of someone else that was competing in the younger age group. So the demand, I guess, is not necessarily super high for those categories. Most of our traffic is definitely in the younger kids, like you guys had.
Yeah, I know just from like our recreational programs at the gym that I work at, like there's just way less demand for programming. I find once you get past like 13, right? I find like that, you know, 8 to 12 age range is kind of where all your business is at. And then after that, they, for us at least, for the most part, they go off on their own. They're climbing with their friends, but they're not so involved in programs necessarily. So it doesn't surprise me, I guess, that you have fewer climbers at that age coming out for an event.
Yeah, especially if they aren't competing at that elite level. Like we have plenty of kids on our actual team, Texas, that are at that age and trying to compete, but just for the people doing it recreationally. But
yeah, for sure.
We'd also love to see like eventually having like high school teams here. Would be another one of the long-term goals that we would like to see, is getting some high school teams together and having them compete at events like this.
Is there any of that stuff going on in Texas? Like here, like there's I think there's like one school board in Ontario that does something like that. It's still pretty small, but it seems bigger in the States from what I hear.
There is none going on in Texas right now, and I know that they do it in Colorado because I was up there one year whenever they were having the state championships at City Rock. But as far as Texas, we don't have anything yet. So we would like to potentially get this rolling and then sort of approach some of the school boards and see if this is something they would be interested in.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. The other thing I'm curious about, like the comp that I ran, Pebble Pull, was just bouldering, right? Like our gym happens to have a lot of bouldering terrain, so it's really easy for us to run one of these. But we never really thought too much about how we would do a version of it for difficulty. So what you've been talking about is really interesting to me. The other one though is speed, and our gym doesn't have a speed wall or anything like close to a speed wall, but I know you guys have those facilities. So when you were doing this, my first question is, did you change how you ran the comp, or did you change the route at all for any of the younger categories?
Yeah, so we did not use the IFSC sanctioned speed wall for the events, just because most of the kids we just wouldn't be able to do it, especially the younger, shorter kids. It's just too challenging.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, it's just too challenging for them. So we just set our own speed routes on a separate wall and timed them that way. Sort of a little bit old school, but it was the easiest solution for us.
Yeah, no, if it works, it works, man. That's super, super reasonable. And then did you change how you did the scoring or anything like that? I don't know if you did it like elimination style or just had all the kids set times and then compare them.
Yeah, we just had them set times. We gave them 2 runs and on the wall, and then we took the lower of the 2 times for that, for the scoring.
Cool. Yeah. Was there as much participation in the speed stuff as there was in the difficulty stuff, or was it was every kid doing everything, or were most people just there for the difficulty?
We push speed a lot. Or the summit rec team coaches push speed a lot. We have like a whole speed section that they do as part of the curriculum. So a lot of the kids actually really like speed. So I would say probably 80 to 90% of the kids were also doing speed at the comps.
That's awesome. That's right. What kind of, I don't know how tall the walls are, but like what kind of times are you dealing with? Like any standout times?
Yes, definitely. At our shortest gym, excuse me, which is our Carrollton location, the walls are only like, I want to say just over 23 feet tall or something. So
Okay, yeah.
pretty short. But some of the older kids were getting like 4-second times on the wall, which I was not expecting at all.
Yeah. Awesome, man. No, it's cool that they're actually like, doing some damage on those routes. I think it makes it exciting for them too.
It does.
I feel like they're moving pretty fast. Also, in how you prepared for it, I don't know if you guys bothered lining up like sponsors, or did you try and get prizes or medals for this kind of thing? Like, I know the first event was like shotgun comp. You guys did that super quick. But for the later ones, did you do anything like that?
Yeah, so the first one, like you said, definitely sort of shotgunned it together. But for all the ones after that, we got custom ribbons made. So they're getting a ribbon that says
Nice.
JCCA on it, and they get the T-shirt whenever they show up. And we don't have any sponsors yet for the competitions, but I think we're definitely going to go for that next season. We are in the process of planning our championship event right now, which we're hosting May 13th. And
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so for that, we're doing like a little grab bag that they get. It's going to have like some chalk in it, some stickers for the JCCA, like a Cliff Bar, and the T-shirt, and just like it's a gear discount for the gyms and stuff like that. So just so they get a little bit more. And then the other big thing that we're doing for the championship event is we're doing an on-site event for them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You say championship event, so like it's been 3 comps so far that you've done, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So is there are you guys doing a cumulative score thing as well, or is it just, the championship's roughly the same thing and whoever wins that is on top, or what's up?
So we are going to do an overall winner, taking into account all the comps and the championship event, but then we're also going to have a separate sort of thing like just for the championship event. So there'll be 2 awards there.
That's cool. But do you know how the cumulative thing is going to work at this point?
We're still working on it, but my rough idea is I'm going to assign a point value for each placement, and then sort of see where each competitor is placed over the 3 comps, and then that will be their like score, and then we will add in their score from the championship event, and we'll see who is the overall champion, is what I was planning on doing.
Cool, man. Do you do like a separate one for the difficulty and a separate one for speed, or do you like Olympic it and try and combine the 2?
I think for the overall, we're going to do it all combined, because I think that would be really cool to be like, this person is exemplary at both speed and difficulty, and they're the winner overall for all the comps. I think that'd be really cool. But then as far as our normal championship awards, we are going to split it up into the speed and difficulty.
Cool, man. A big question I have as a guy who has to also help run the gym is well, first of all, it sounds like this didn't damage the footprint of your gym too much. Like it was only for a few hours and it didn't hurt anybody too much. But did you guys break even on it? Like I know you didn't put too many resources into the first one aside from a lot of time and setting. But money wise, if other gyms wanted to do this, would you be able to say you actually make money off this thing rather than some comps where you kind of just lose money when you do them?
So far, we have broken even. We're not making money at all, but we also aren't losing it. But I think that's largely due to the fact that we are staffing it with volunteers. Our Team Texas kids are all really awesome, and they've been the ones that have been coming out to help belay and help judge the comps. So we're not having to actually staff that with staff members that we're having to pay. So I think that is the main reason why we're able to break even on this. But it's also just starting, so hopefully in the future we'll be able to get things to where we can make a little bit of money to help sustain it.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm. It's cool that you also use your like team members for the volunteers. We did the same thing up here, and I think probably my favorite part of the comp we did was like seeing all these kids who you've been coaching for a while, like as competitive athletes, and then watching them have to interact with like younger kids. For a lot of them, it was a pretty new thing, but they all did like an awesome job. And the little kids like look up to a lot of these kids too, right? Like we had national champions like being their judges, national champions like grabbing little kids and helping them like get up to the start hold and stuff like that. And it like for sure is definitely my favorite part of these comps now that I've done it. So I think it's awesome that you guys did that too.
Yeah,
that's rad.
That's really cool, and that's definitely one of the same reasons why we wanted to do it. Is like a lot of these kids when they join the teams are like, oh, I want to be on Team Texas, or they look up to these kids, and it is really cool to get to see them interact with them.
Yeah. So like I said, I've done a few of these bouldering competitions, and they've gone really well up here. And we want to start figuring out a way to do like rope versions of it. And if there's a speed wall available, a speed version would be awesome too. So I'm like taking a lot of notes from this just for whatever I'm going to do next. But now that you've done a couple events of this rope and speed thing, is there anything you would do differently, or like anything that I should know going into it, like stuff that you'd want to warn somebody about before you make it happen?
The main thing that has been challenging for us is just making sure we have enough volunteers, which just with the crew we have down here, a lot of the comps were happening when other things were happening, so that was one of the hardest things, is making sure it was staffed correctly. Was a challenge. But then like with the scoring system that we're using, it's a bit complicated to score because every hold counts, so you essentially have to score 15 on-site routes per kid. So making sure that the time between climbing ending and getting the scorecards back and then holding awards ceremony, time needs to be minimized as much as possible, because as soon as like you hit like 20 to 30 minutes, people start getting anxious and they're wanting.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So what I did to remedy that was I created a Google form and then a attached Google spreadsheet. So we just had to all we have to do is enter in the hold that they got to on the route and then the attempts that it took, and we just do that for every single one, and it automatically calculates the score. So it really cut down on that time, and then it also cut down on scoring errors as well. So that was really beneficial to getting the scores out on time.
That sounds awesome. So like kids could have multiple tries on these. How would let's say I scored like I got to hold number 20 on my first try, and then I got to like hold 22 on my second try. How would the fact that it was my second attempt change my my score? Like, is 22 worth 22 unless there's a tie, and then you use attempts to break it back?
Yeah. So the way it works is like, so depending on the difficulty of the route, like the easiest route is worth 100 points and the hardest route is worth 1,500 points because we have 15 routes. So if you got to hold 20 out of the total of 30 holds on the fifth hardest route or something, so it's worth 1,000 points, then you'd get that many points for it. And then if you got to hold 22 the next time, you would get the higher amount of points, and then attempts would just break any sort of ties that occur from that.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Did you guys did you run into any ties as you were doing it, or maybe that might have been setting rather than scoring, I guess? But
we had one tie at the last comp, but it was broken by attempts, so we didn't have to deal with that. The comp before that, we actually, our set was a little easy, so we had three of the older boy competitors. They flashed the top 5 climbs, so in that case we had a super final. We had a super final climb ready, so
sweet.
Yeah, so we did put them on that, and that was, we got separation there. So we had a backup plan in case that happened.
Yeah. What grade did that super final have to be for those boys then?
It was, I think it was like 11D, but it was a really
Okay.
technical climb, and
Yeah.
a lot of those guys they're very strong, but they hadn't really gotten their technique worked out yet. So it worked
Yeah,
really well
man.
for separating them.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So you guys are planning on maybe doing some bouldering comps in the future. What kind of model are you thinking about using for those? Something similar to what the USA climbing does right now, or a different kind of format?
So we're actually thinking about doing the zone scoring, similar to the IFSC, where you had the bonus hold and then the top.
Yeah.
But I think we may add like an extra bonus hold just to give a little bit more of an opportunity for kids to get scores. But just keep it really simple and do that format.
Cool. Yeah, we like flirted with that idea, and then I think the issue for us was just like I think what scared me was that I didn't want to like deal with people arguing like whether a kid had controlled bonus or like other nonsense like that. So I just totally freaked out about it and ditched it completely. And we just did like a straight up red point round.
Oh, really?
Your score degrades over attempts. We kind of treat because again, I think the a difference between our two comps is that ours ended up being like a ton of really young competitors. So it was like the first one we did was about 115 kids, and like 90 of them were under age 11.
Oh, wow.
So it was like really, really, really young kids. So all we focused on, like we decided we wanted the kids to walk away with like new knowledge about comp climbing so that if they ever decided to go to the next level, they would have learned something relevant. So we decided, okay, we're just going to focus on like 4 point starts, which we use for all of our locals up here. So we wanted to make sure kids understood what it meant to have four pieces of tape on your start and how to like deal with that. So we ditched the bonus thing. We just made sure that every climb had different types of starts, and then good judges who were able to explain how the starts worked, and obviously fairly forgiving with the kids, like if they like fluffed a start or forgot a foot or something like that. But we decided that that's what we did, and we definitely did run into a couple ties that we couldn't break, which was like kind of too bad. But maybe that's unavoidable when you have so many kids. But like I think we'd still do it that way again. But I'd love to. Honestly, it would be amazing if we could put bonuses in. So I'm gonna be watching how you guys do it. If you do that, I'll like I'm gonna like call you again and ask you how it went, because I'm just afraid of it. Like I don't want to deal with the parents that then come to me and start complaining about like, well, he didn't weight it, blah blah blah. That's just too scary for me. I can't handle that.
Yeah. Luckily, all the parents here have been really, really cool about everything. Like when we did have ties, there was no one that was getting upset or anything like that. Everyone is really cool about it, so that is nice. But I would definitely, I would be a little nervous about that too in your situation.
Yeah, man. That's cool. I was just curious if like after you've done these comps, I mentioned already the idea of like making it a part of or if you were curious about going to USA climbing about these, it's clear that like in your part of the country, there's a need for this kind of thing where you can have a comp for kids that, aren't really like competitive. We call them pre-competitive kids. Do you think it's something that like the USA climbing should be kind of like trying to deal with? Because up here in Canada, we're just dealing with a ton of kids, and it's way too intimidating to start out in some of these comps. So like my provincial board is starting to work and try and deal with that. So they're basically kind of using roughly what we were doing at our gym and trying to spread that across the province. Is that something that the USA is going to have to really start dealing with soon, or is it more of a local like Dallas kind of thing?
I think that it may be something that needs to happen in the future, but right now we aren't quite to that point yet where USA Climbing really needs to step in. The I can't speak for other parts of the country, but for Dallas, we do have a pretty big indoor climbing scene, which is I think why we have enough kids to have that need. because we don't have any outdoor climbing near us. So
Yeah, true, man.
everything's flat. So we get a lot of traffic in the gyms because of that, and that sort of drives the amount of kids we have in our programs and the ability to do this. But I honestly don't know how big the sort of pre-competitive groups are in other parts of the country.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I feel like it's something that, like, especially seeing that it looks like your events have been pretty successful, I imagine you're going to start seeing it pop up in other, like, other big cities there has to be one or two other places feeling it. So I have a feeling there's going to be a bunch of people, interested in what you're doing. So I'm glad you've been doing that work. And I feel like it's a pretty good chance it's going to expand soon. So hopefully you guys keep playing a big part in that. I think it's been awesome.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. It keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I know you got a coach tonight. I guess you guys are like in the dead of rope season down there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I know we're only 2 weeks away from our difficulty nationals. You guys still have a couple months to go, I guess. Have you had regionals yet?
No. Regionals is coming up in May. We are just I actually had a meeting this morning about setting for that and sort of getting everything figured out. So. Yep, our nationals is in July, so we are a couple months behind you guys.
Yeah, if there's anything I'm jealous of the States about, it's that you guys have like a legit difficulty season. Ours feels like it lasts 2 months and then it's over. So yeah, I'm gonna have to. So many of the kids up here would rather like climb in the States because it's just like over in the blink of an eye, and then it's summer and back to training for bouldering. It's kind of crazy.
That's really funny because we feel like our difficulty season is not long enough. We're like, oh my gosh, we are always training for bouldering. We need more rope season.
Seriously. Wow, man. Well, okay, when bouldering nationals for you guys is in like February-ish,
it's
right?
Very
or like
end
end
of February. Yeah.
Okay, so ours is like roughly the same. So what are you dealing with? You have like a 4 or 5 month rope season?
Yeah, from February to July is our rope season. And then
I can't believe you guys are complaining about that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then we'll take the summer off, and then we'll start training for bouldering again in August. But yeah.
Cool, man. Well, it was really nice talking to you. I know you got to get to your kids soon, so I'm going to let you go. Thanks a lot for taking the time down in Dallas to talk to me, and best of luck with the championship event you have coming up in a couple weeks. I'm going to keep an eye out for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was definitely good to talk to you as well and learn a little bit about what you guys are doing up there. In the Canadian climbing stuff as well.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the time. I'll talk to you soon, Canon.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
That's it for this week's episode of Plastic Weekly. Thanks to Canon Huse for answering my questions, and thanks to you guys for listening. Make sure you visit plasticweekly.com to find footnotes, references, and other bonus content related to this episode, including video from my Pebble Pole and the website for Canon's JCCA. Our theme music is by Javelin. Plastic Weekly is currently self-funded, and I'm not airing ads just yet, so please support it by subscribing on iTunes or Google Play, leave it a good review, and share it with your friends. You have no idea how much it helps the podcast. And I could never make Plastic Weekly without the support of Climbers Rock in Burlington, Ontario. You can read more about this episode and leave a comment at plasticweekly.com, and you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can send me an email to tyler@plasticweekly.com with your comments, concerns, questions, compliments. Just tell me you're out there, somewhere. Good luck to everybody competing at the Boulder World Cup in Tokyo this weekend. We'll be thinking about you. Talk to you next week.